Alright guys, this trek into DIY tech is going to be a continuation of the last trek into DIY tech, was where we started the mechanical assembly of the submersible for the action camera. So here it is. I'm going to step you through it. I'm going to give you a close-up of everything I did between the last video and this video, and then we're going to get to the wiring section. So this is going to be more of a benchtop look at this. So here we go. All right, as you can see here, we have the sea perch motors installed. We've actually got the action camera, the waterproof case installed. There's a part here which is a custom part that I made to get the AV or the video signal out. It's an analog signal that comes out of the mini USB port of the camera when you have it set up with this cable. So I have all the motors marked so you can tell which ones are where. This is going to be for the strain relief for the Cat 5e cable that we're going to put on there. And again, we're not affiliated with Sea Perch. We don't we're not connected to them in any way. I'm just using their, why reinvent the wheel when there's something perfectly good out there available. These mounts, as I explained in the last video, are mounts that I designed to hold the Sea Perch motors in there. So those, I'll try to put a link to those so you guys can, if you want to use those, you can download the STL files and print them out. But what we're going to do today is also this is for in case we want to put an additional tether in there for mechanical, you want to pull it back using a separate tether from the cable. Depending on whether you want to risk pulling this back out of the water if it gets stuck somewhere using the Ethernet cable or not, that's up to you. But I put it up there so that we can explore using that at some point. But we're gonna show you how I take all this cable and set it up so that we can use just the average Sea Perch controller. So I actually got a controller from Sea Perch. Here it is, and I've added some extra things. So we have a monitor that's going to fit into this bracket. So I 3D printed this bracket, designed 3D printed this bracket so that it would fit the monitor. But there it is, and I also have the power coming out of here using a barrel jack instead of the regular way that Sea Perch does it. They bring the cables out of here where I've inserted a power indicator LED. It's just an LED with a resistor in there to tell me when the battery is connected properly. So we've got that, and then we've also got an additional cable coming out of here. This cable is for my video monitor, so that's what's going to be connected to the action camera. And so yeah, that just connects to the brown cable that in the Sea Perch system is normally not used. So when you have the Ethernet, it's 4 twisted pair in your Ethernet cable. The Sea Perch system usually uses 3 of those twisted pair for the motors. So we have these 2 available, ground and AV analog signal on this twisted pair. And so we'll see how all of that comes together as we switch cameras here so that I can finish this work. I'll show you how all that gets tied together. And as you can see here, I've even got the cargo carrying mesh. This is just some plastic canvas. So all of you who do, cross stitch will recognize this. It comes in different colors. I just have some wire ties in there holding that across the frame. So very convenient, and yeah, should work really nicely as we go ahead and balance this out using the foam up here and some weights down here. Maybe we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it what the buoyancy is when we put this in the water. All right, so here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the cable out this way. We're going to create what's called a service loop. So we're actually going to make a loop here that looks like this, and then we're going to attach the cable here. We're probably going to use some tie wraps, something like that, something very inexpensive. So we'll come up through the center, over the top here, and make a loop that will allow the Ethernet cable to just, you know, come up over the drone, or the submersible drone, right? So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. In order to get that done, what I'm going to do is, so in the typical sea perch system, you have the end of your cable. You would take this, cut this end off, and then that would be wired into your motors. What we're going to do is we're going to make a connector here, so in case I damage this cable, which it's not going to happen, right? We're not going to damage the cable rubbing over rocks and stuff like that. But what I'm going to do is, just in case that should happen, you know, asteroid hits, whatever, I'm going to add a connector here, and then we're going to waterproof it. And that way, should the impossible thing happen, I'll be able to disconnect this, put a new cable in there, and there we go. This is the, I'm going to use this as a test cable. This is a very short cable here, so we'll be able to have it on the bench, plug one end into our sea perch controller. This end will plug into the end of this cable, and we'll be able to give it a test before we put the waterproofing material on there. Now, there are different ways to do this, and there are strain reliefs that are waterproof. But in this case, this is such an inexpensive setup, right? So how much, you know, is it worth it? I'm going to show you some methods of doing that are very cost effective, and it'll work in this case. We have low voltage, low amperage. It'll be fine. So let me show you that material right now. This is called coax seal. Very cool stuff. I'll try to put a link to the supplier down below in the description section, but this stuff is awesome. I've used this in other projects. For example, this is what's waterproofing the sensor end in the water quality monitor that we set up. So I know it works very well. So we'll use this stuff. I'll show you how this goes on. The other thing that we're going to use is, nobody runs cables like this in their house anymore because everything is wireless. But at your local hardware store, you can find these Cat 5e jacks, right? And so these are called punch downs. I don't know if they use that terminology anymore. It probably dates me, but this is a punch down, and it even comes with the tool in there. I'll show you how to use all that in a second. But that, if you had a wall outlet and somebody had a home theater or a man cave in their basement, this is what you would put in your wall, and you notice it looks just like the square switch outlets or the plugs that you would use in your average outlet. But this one actually accepts the connector for the Cat 5e. They also have a Cat 6 version, which is you know, you'll have thicker wiring in there. Yeah, so I'll show you how to get those done. But all this does is you go in here like this, you hook the top of it, and you snap the bottom in. I'm not going to do that right now because this is the one that we're going to use for our submersible today. But it's as easy as that. And what you do have to keep in mind is there's an A and a B way of putting these wires in. So one is a crossover and one is a direct wire. So you're gonna have to keep track of that. But yeah, here we go. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but for some added abrasion resistance, I'm going to use some shrink tubing. So shrink tubing is going to go through, all the wires are going to go through there. If I can get it open. Let's see. All right, here we go. So I'm going to feed all the wires through here. And I've cut the wires to different lengths to make this slightly easier to do. Yeah, so we'll see how that works out. And so we'll feed all the wires through, and we'll probably speed this up a little bit so you guys don't have to suffer through all that. But here we go. All right, awesome. Now that we've got that on there, awesome. Now that we've got that on there, I'm gonna push it down to a certain point where I'm going to tie wrap this on there. So I want to have it right there so that the tie wrap is actually on the shrink tubing and not on the wire. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and shrink that down using a heat gun. This one is pretty cool. I got this one when I was running the makerspace, so I don't even remember where I got this one, but it has a nice nozzle here that keeps it cool at the nozzle. So if you put it down somewhere and you touch this, try not to, but if you do, it won't burn your hand off. So, but this one's really, it's been awesome for all these years. I'm gonna shrink this. So we're gonna shrink this down real quick. All right, there you go. Now that we've got that done, we will go to the next part, which is getting everything into the punch down. So we're actually going to use B, right? Option B, as you remember, option A has slightly different method of connection, right? So as you can see here, we have solid green and we have a white and green striped wire. That's what that indicates there. So we have solid green, striped. We're going to use the B option, which connections 1, 2, 3, and 6 are different. 4, 5, 8, and 7 are the same between A and B. And the difference is one is a crossover and one is a direct connection. So what we're going to do here is we're going to cut these wires to length, because when we do our waterproofing, or when we put the seal on there, the conceal on there, what we're going to do is we're going to conceal over this and right to the edge of this, which will enable us to, when we plug in the other side, we're going to put some more conceal over the end to kind of waterproof that a little bit. There's other things you can do. You can put silicone in there, or room temperature vulcanizing silicone in there, so that it will be completely waterproofed. In this case, I don't think we need all of that. We're just going to use the conceal to seal it up, and so this will give a good surface to go ahead and get that done. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to cut all the wires to length, and then we'll use the punch down that's provided, like I said, in the packaging for that. And there's also even a little cap that goes over when you're done punching down all these cables. And punching down, all it means is there are some contacts in here, metal contacts. You can see that shiny part that's in there in that little slit. When you push this down, what's going to happen is you're going to push the wire down into there. And by pushing the wire down into there, it's going to make the wire go past these metal parts. And the metal parts are going to go through the insulation of the wire and contact the copper that's inside. So you just push that down, punch it down, and then the copper inside of here makes a connection with those contacts there. The contacts there actually come out to these contacts here, which when you plug in your cable, there's a matching set of contacts there in the cable. You plug in your cable, and there's an electrical connection that happens. But here we go. We're going to show you how to. Ooh, that's very good, isn't it? So there you go. We're going to show you how to do that. All you have to do is follow the AB designations on there. So B is on the right side. So if you can see here, there's green here, orange here. Is A, B, A, B. Now, again, you may not have this because you may choose to connect your motors directly. In that case, you're already done. But like I said, we're going to put a connector in here in case we mess up the cable. We can change this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the bottom, and we're going to follow that guide conveniently on there. So green is in there. Green with stripe is on there. And we'll just use the punch down tool to push this cable onto the contacts. And it's just that simple. Inside, so the same which is a good note. And this one. There you go. Okay, so let's do turns off. And then we'll do this. And we'll see how we did. Just like that. After we do the test, we can put this cap on here. This cap will keep the connections nice and secure, and it'll give us a nice surface for us to put the sealing tape over. But we're going to reserve that until after we do the testing. So alright guys, so off camera we've got a power supply that's going to provide the power via this cable right here. We've already plugged in the test cable. This is the Cat 5e cable that would normally be used with the Sea Perch system. Again, not affiliated with Sea Perch or promoting Sea Perch or connected to Sea Perch in any way. We're just using their components to make this an easier build. Here we've plugged in the other end to the submersible. Off camera we have a power supply. We're going to turn that on, and we've got the 12 volts going. LED is on, and this is going to be the first time that we try any of these motors. Okay, here we go. Starboard motor, that works both directions. That's awesome. That's pretty doggone cool, actually. This is the first time I'm seeing it. You guys are seeing it. I'm seeing it for the first time as well. Port motor. Oh, goodness, that works very nice. I like that. I like that. Okay, there you go. And then we're going to do the motors. This motor here. And again, be careful. If you got your fingers down here and you got your finger up here, these guys are pretty sharp. You know, they're not gonna cut through bone, but it's gonna hurt. So we're gonna try the motors that will cause you to dive and surface. That works very nice. Thank you, Sea Perch, for making this an easy build. So there you go. Up, down, port, starboard motor, and I can feel it on my hand right here. So this is pushing a lot of air right there, which means, which translates, I hope, into great force underwater. Wow, this is awesome. I love this. This is going to work very nice. Okay, so we're at the point now where, and again, you want to test before you start sealing everything up. But we are at the point now where I think we can seal this up. All right, so we're at the point that we can put the coax seal on there. What I'm going to do now is, so this tab is normally used for retention of this connector into that whole wall outlet thing that I showed you before. This guy right here, this is not going to go into a wall outlet, and I don't think that I'm going to, I have a design for a box that will fit onto this guy that this connector will go into. We're not going to use that anytime soon. So what I'm going to do is, to simplify my life, I am going to cut that off at this point. So here you go. Sorry for my voice is kind of, I have allergies and they are pretty bad at this point. So if I have to clear my throat several times, I'm sorry about that. But there you go. So what I'm going to have is a nice flat surface for the coax seal to go and seal against. So here we go. And this just comes on a coil like this. Just open this up a little bit and push it past. This is just a roll of material. And it looks like this. It looks like tar. This looks like something you would put on your roof. Right? So you just pull this off and it seals to itself, kind of like this silicone tape. So I have some silicone tape that I use on occasion. I'll show you some of that. This stuff, you pull it off. This is awesome. stuff. You pull it off and you stretch it, and once you put it against itself, it will vulcanize and seal to itself. I don't know if vulcanize is the correct thing, but it will seal to itself. So this is a very similar material in that this will seal to the rest of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel some of this off, and we're going to start from the point at which we heat shrunk this. So we have a nice stable point to start at, and you're just going to wrap this around like this. And you're going to have to get creative when you get to the square end of it, because obviously you have a material that wants to go flat, and you have, so just add a little bit more here. And you see it just really just seals to itself. It just sticks to itself. And so you're going to have that there. And here we go. Just cut the carrier off. And just go ahead and wrap it like so. And again, this is going to create a pocket right there. You can fill that with silicone. I don't think that's necessary. But if I was going to make an application that was going to go like really deep, and I needed that to be secure, I would probably fill that with silicone. This is not going to be the case. We're going in the canal out back. And yeah, we're not going that deep. This will be plenty good for our application here. Just keep peeling that back until you get to a point. Ooh, I left the space open there. Watch this. See how awesome this stuff is? You can just use that. It's almost like putty. Close that up. Bring this right to the edge. And when we put the cable, the actual cable, not the test cable, but the actual cable on there, we will bring some from this end where the cable's plugged in to mate up with that. And we'll probably leave that for the test, the actual test video. So we'll just go ahead and cut that. And this puppy is ready to go. The only other thing that we need to finish on here is to go ahead and make the service loop that goes on here for the cable that goes on there. But we'll save that. I'll show that to you in the test video, how that wound up. But you can see there that pretty well bonds to itself. You don't have to do anything else to there. And like I said, I've used this in water quality monitoring situations where the sensors are submerged. This stuff keeps it watertight. But there you go. That's the whole thing right there. Okay, please forgive the noise and the mess. As you know, we've got a lot of busy stuff going on. So we've got the connector done up to this point. We've also got the camera installed. We've got our proprietary sealing connector there. And that's going into a USB mini. So USB mini, we've got a gasket there, and we've got a hole in this waterproof case. So we're going to test that out on this 100 foot of Cat 6 cable. right? So this is a Cat 5 connector, I know, but we're doing 100 feet. So I want a little bit more current carrying, or less current, or a lower voltage drop. This is, I think 22 gauge wire, 24 gauge wire. And Cat 5e, I'm not going to get it right. So it's a lower gauge wire. It's a little heavier, but we'll see how it performs out there. So we're going to test that out with the camera. We'll see what kind of range we can push the analog signal to. And then we have a cord wrap. So we're going to, before we deploy this, we're going to put this 100 feet of Cat 6 on this cord storage wrap. Then we'll plug in here and use some coax seal on this to seal this end of the cable, and then we'll use some tie wraps to secure us to this strain relief here. So that's where we're going. And then as soon as we finish the connection on this side, what we're going to do is get us to neutral buoyancy. We have some insulation material that's going to go around here. It's just like pool noodles, but it's got a slit in it, and it's a smaller diameter on the outside, so it'll stay tight to that, and it'll stay out of the props. So yeah, we'll see how much of that we'll have to use. I don't know what the buoyancy is on this thing at this point. The front end is heavier than the, well, maybe not. Maybe I got that right. So I've got more material on the back end and less material on the front, but the camera sits in the front. So we'll see how that balanced out. It's going to be interesting to, yeah, see how all of that balances out. I kind of eyeballed everything on the weight, so yeah, here we go. Alright, so we've got our bucket of water set up there. We've got our float foam going here, and we've got a blade to do the adjustments. But first we're going to throw it in there and see how it does before we make any adjustments at all. So you see how I've got the cable set up here. So using that as a strain relief there. It's got a little motion there, so I can it can move around while dragging this cable. I probably shouldn't put that straight down on the concrete there, but so as you can see there, it's got a little bit of flex to it, but it'll keep the cable from pulling out. So if I pull this back by the cable, I can do that. Ideally, you would want some sort of tether that has reinforcement inside, so it's made for pulling, but in this case, this is a submersible on the cheap, so yeah. So anyway, but you see how both ends of the cable, so that's our Ethernet end, and this is the submersible end, and we're just going to put this in as is and see what the buoyancy is like. So I'm expecting it to, yeah, it sinks right to the bottom. So next step is I'm going to add a little bit of foam, see if we can't get some just above neutral buoyant on this guy. All right, we've got 2 of the pieces of foam set up, and yeah, let's see what happens. So I've got them just on both sides right now. You know, your typical setup. We'll see what this puppy does. And oh, okay, right to the bottom. All right, we're gonna need some more foam. So I've got some cut here. We'll make the quick adjustments, and yeah, let's add a few more pieces on there. See what we got. The good thing is we've got more area that we can cover, so I'm going to put one in the front where that lug is that we can use to add additional tether to, and we'll see how that works out. All right, we've got two bigger pieces in the side. Let's see, I can still reach the shutter. All right, looks like we're good. Here we go. Let's see. And oh, just almost. It feels really good, but I really want it to be a little bit positive, so that if something happens to the motor, it will do this and just float up on its own, right? So let's try a couple more pieces on the back, and we'll see how that works out. Let's see. We just happened to, the guy that designed this put plenty of pieces of stick foam on here because I knew it was going to be compact and pretty. It's like a brick, right? Trying to make a brick fly. It's pretty compact, so I left all the spaces on there. Oh, hey, let's see. Oh yeah, see, you push it down and it just wants to come up. That means the motor will be able to push it down, because you want it to, something happens, it comes up on its own. Yeah, and it doesn't look like the cable's burning it too much at this length. We'll see how it operates when it's out there in the wild, but that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few adjustments here, and then we'll put some tie wraps on there. So convenient thing is, so really cool, this insulation foam, it comes with a slit at the top. It's not all the way through in case you slide it onto the pipe. So if you slide it onto the pipes, you don't have to slit it. But guess what? In our situation, the pipes were already put together, so I just had to run the knife through there, finish opening that up, and then you can just clamp it onto your pipes. So really cool. The other thing that I had ready, just in case, so the idea was to either stick this to the bottom where where that payload mesh is, stick it to the bottom, but then you can't get, you know, the flow of water from the vertical motor would have been obstructed. Okay, we're having a flyover right now. Give it a few seconds to go by. But with that payload mesh, that solution would have obstructed some of the water flow. So the other thought was to put this on the top and have it make a hole there so the water could be sucked through there for that fan. I don't know how well that would have worked. Obviously we didn't have to use that, but this would have been extra, you know, extra material to go ahead and offset that water weight, right? Because what you're doing is displacing water when you're floating. So the amount of water you displace by volume is heavier than the foam. Foam is mostly air, so that's how that one works. So, but there you go. That's the deal right there. And it's pointed slightly down, which I kind of like, because as we're moving around, I want to catch more of the seabed or the riverbed wherever I am. I'll see what happens. I'll adjust that and see what we come up with. I might actually make these pads a little bit shorter so that it has just a little bit less buoyancy and the camera tilts up a little bit more, maybe like this. We'll see. I'll make some adjustments and see. I won't drag you guys through all of that. Next time you see this guy, all the adjustments will have been made, and these guys will be tie wrapped on there. And yeah. Well, if you stuck around to this point, thanks for watching the whole thing. I really appreciate that. These days, people don't have patience to stick through to the end of things very often. But the next video is going to be us taking this thing out, doing some testing. So I hope you'll join us for that one. And thanks for watching this one. And remember, there's number one, video number one, and video number 3 coming up. Yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer everything. Yep, and there she is. There's my helper. You should have been over here testing. It's not very productive just laying out there. But anyway, this is always around helping me get the projects done.